We're going to talk to Tom Packer, fellow of UCL Centre for US Politics. Before I talk to you, Tom, let's have a look at some breaking news from the US of A on the Biden family.
This is a Fox News alert. All new this morning, House Republicans finding President Biden and his family received more than $27 million from foreign individuals and entities since 2014. Lawmakers call it an impeachable conduct.
Impeachable conduct? What does Donald Trump have to say about it?
And they don't call him Crooked Joe for no reason. They said President Biden engaged in impeachable conduct and said he abused his office and defrauded the United States of America to enrich his family. Republicans revealed that since 2014, the Biden family and its associates received more than $27 million from foreign individuals and entities. They also found that while Biden was serving as vice president, the Biden family got more than $8 million in loans from Democrat benefactors. And they said that those loans have never been repaid. Those are the best kind of loans, aren't they? And I'm proud to announce that being president, I lost billions of dollars. And I knew that would happen. Maybe not quite as much as that, but I'm satisfied with that because we want to make America great again. That's much more important. We have to make America great again.
Joe Biden made his kind of swan song. We'll play a couple of clips from that coming up a little bit later on. But let's talk to Tom Packer, who's been watching the Democratic National Convention over there at UCL. Very good morning to you, Tom.
Good morning.
I mean, amazing, isn't it, that American politics has become a sort of battle of the crooks, if you like. You know, we've got Hillary Clinton accusing Donald Trump of being the only president who's been indicted on 34 counts, which, to be honest, I'm not convinced is any more than one count of something that probably should never have been a case in the first place. And now we've got Donald Trump accusing Joe Biden of being crooked, which he's always called him, because of these £27 million. I mean, $27 million, rather. I mean, so much sort of, you know, dirt on both candidates, really, that's been just being chucked around.
Well, of course, Joe Biden is not a candidate anymore, which and this is one of the things. You get loads of stuff thrown at you when you're president, and your approval rating gradually declines, and that's one reason the Democrats, at the moment at least, are very happy they've replaced him with Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but isn't it funny that they've replaced him with Kamala Harris, whereas, you know, just 3 months ago, you know, he was absolutely fine, he was fit as a fiddle, he was completely and utterly on top of everything, and he was the best candidate the Democrats had. Now suddenly he's not.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting, the U-turn on that. I do think, of course, people do decline over time, right? So sometimes we all know elderly relatives who are okay until they stop being okay.
Right.
And I think
I think you and I would have said that he wasn't okay a year ago, never mind, you know, 3 months ago.
It depends what the level you want to stand is. Part of the thing for the Democrats was Kamala Harris seemed a very suboptimal candidate, so a weak Biden looked like. But so far, she's done a pretty solid job since. She's been U-turning on her left-wing stances. She's been taking care to sound as populist as possible.
Has she, though? I mean, I haven't really seen her doing anything. All I've seen her doing is walking into a shop, buying some Doritos, and doing a lot of weird campaign videos where she seems to be on the phone to lots of people, which is clearly set up and kind of cringeworthy. She hasn't actually had a proper investigation of her policy. She hasn't been interviewed by anybody. She hasn't really made a press conference for any reason at all. I mean, I have no idea what she believes in.
I don't think that's going to survive long beyond the DNC, or if it does, it will cause trouble. But what she has been doing, not saying this, but through her aides briefing, has been U-turning a lot of her previous left-wing stances. There's obviously an area of vigour about her. Having said that, she's still only just ahead in the polls, and under some readings, she'd lose the election if it was tomorrow, because as we remember from 2016, it's the Electoral College. So she's very far from being a lock. But it does mean the kind of stuff that Republicans can lay on Joe Biden aren't nearly so relevant for the election anymore, or anything the Democrats can lay on Donald Trump. I think you were making a good point earlier in the way in which the American politics is almost becoming a situation where people are starting to criminalise their opponents. It's a bit like in Italy, and I don't think it's a very good development. But I think the main thing is it just gets both sides angrier. It doesn't necessarily switch the key voters who decide the election.
No, I mean, I think the problem is that there's still an awful lot of unhappy voters Republicans who don't particularly want to vote for Trump, Democrats who don't particularly want to vote for Kamala, quite often because they don't like the process, which has been steamrolled over democratically. I mean, Joe Biden made a speech about how democracy has prevailed at the DNC just last night, but in fact, democracy has not prevailed in the Democratic Party because they haven't had a primary. They haven't had the usual process of actually picking a candidate. They've just imposed one on everybody.
That's a very fair point. It is. Having said that, almost everyone who could have been a candidate, in fact, I think basically everyone, has come out and endorsed Harris. And of course,
well, yeah, because they've been told to. I mean, there's a 3-line whip on that, isn't there?
I mean, they could say no, but in Britain, we don't pick our party leaders for a primary. We're normal voters. It's people who have to pay money to join a political party who decide the Labour and to a less degree the Tory leaders. Tory leaders is more MPs, so a bit the members. So in some sense, Kamala Harris has been picked for a very British method of selecting your party leader. Might be a flippant way of saying it. I think it captures the truth.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trouble. I mean, as you said quite rightly, you know, Kamala was not the candidate before when Joe Biden was thought to be fine. One of the reasons she wasn't the candidate because she wasn't thought to be good enough. She wasn't thought to be somebody who was really worthy of becoming president. And then suddenly, you know, Nancy Pelosi and the Obamas sit down in a room together and go, oh, I know, let's get rid of Joe Biden. You know, he pretty much went against his will. We know that. But what about the problem with the Palestinian votes? Because there's an awful lot of demonstrations going on currently. I think we've got a clip to show you of what happened yesterday. The day before, the crowd was circling the convention centre. This is them now sort of wrecking the fence which has been put up to protect everybody. Somebody managed to get on stage earlier as well. And it's quite a significant problem in some states, like in Indiana, for example, and I think in Illinois as well. There are lots of people who didn't vote for Joe Biden in even the sort of the non-existent primaries because they were, as they would put it, undecided or uncommitted, I think is the phrase they use. Is that a big problem for her?
It's a moderate problem. One thing I would emphasise is lots of people who voted undecided did so for different reasons. I wouldn't assume they're all people who are angry that Joe Biden isn't anti-Israel enough / isn't pro-Palestinian enough. Obviously, people who feel very strongly about that issue want to give you that impression, but the polling suggests otherwise. There was a bit of disruption in the actual convention.
Mind you, you know, I made this argument about the election here, and people said, "Oh no, not a problem for Labour. You know, it's very, very minimal. All of the Muslim feeling about Palestine." And look what happened. You know, they lost a considerable number of votes and a considerable number of seats to pro-Palestinian individuals, and in fact, one of the main members of what would have been the cabinet, the shadow cabinet, lost up in Leicester. You know, so these things are not as small as you think.
There is truth in that. I mean, I would emphasise that, of course, I think sometimes we overemphasise this. America is not Britain. And, of course, Keir Starmer won a huge majority and might have done worse. One thing I'd say is the Democrats, it's a bad issue for the Democrats. They're losing some people to non-voting or far-left candidates, some people who might be right-wing on other issues, like some Arab Americans, and they're also losing some Jewish voters. So there's a poll just come out in Pennsylvania that finds the Democrats' lead among Jews there has gone down from 40 points in last election to 8 points.
Right.
Because the Jews prefer Trump, who is extremely pro-Israel on that issue.
Also not helped by the fact that Kamala didn't pick Shapiro because he was Jewish.
Indeed, well, you would think running a Jewish guy from Pennsylvania on the ticket might be helpful if you're having trouble among Jews in Pennsylvania. But anyway, but big thing I'd emphasise is do not overemphasise the importance of the Palestinian issue in American politics. Just like in Britain, it's very important in certain neighbourhoods, but it's not what most people listening to your call were voting on. Similarly, the same's true in America. It's something like number 15 or issue for young people.
Yeah, so, but it might be significant in a couple of states that she needs to win. Is my point.
It could. Well, particularly, I think Indiana she's going to lose anyway. Illinois should win anyway. Michigan, which has a substantial Muslim and Arab population, and Pennsylvania, which, as I said, has a substantial Jewish population. Ways either side could come around to hurt her. But the big problems for her are stuff like Joe Biden's unpopular, the economy isn't seen as doing very well. They've been very liberal on immigration, and those are the issues that are much more likely to lose in the election. Because lots of journalists who write about this are sympathetic to left-wing critiques of her, there's a very strong focus on the Palestinian issue, but actually her problems on the right are much more important.
Yeah, interesting. Tom, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Tom Packer there, fellow at the UCL Centre for US Politics.